This is a new film starring Nicolas Cage, which was originally released in the US last month under the title Arsenal. Now, clearly you can't release a film called Arsenal in the UK under the title Arsenal unless it's actually about Arsenal. The thing is, the film isn't even about the other kind of arsenal. You know, an arsenal is a large collection of weapons. There's no large collection of weapons in this film.
So what's the third arsenal then? You got the football club, you've got the collection of weapons.
Well, it's just whatever this film is. Oh. It's just people kind of going berserk. The film it's about these two brothers in Mississippi. One of them's called Mikey the Elder, played by Jonathan Sheck, who is, he's the bad seed. He's done bad things in his past. He can never get a job together. He's served time in prison. He's worked in, drug dealing and things like that. His younger brother, JP, who's played by Adrian Grenier, of course, Vince in Entourage, Mark's favourite show and film, who has made something of his life. He has a wife, he has a kid, he has a nice kind of landscape gardening construction business that he's running. And in the past, Mikey had worked for a while for a local crime boss called Eddie King, who's played by Nicolas Cage, and who is, a kind of a psychopath of the classic Cage vintage. And he gets back in touch with Mikey and decides that JP is doing too well for himself. And he wants to get in on some of that, landscape gardening action. So he decides to stage a kind of a fake kidnapping with Mikey, which will allow them to fleece JP for all he's got, and they can make off with his non-ill-gotten gains in an ill-gotten way. And here's that magnificent plan coming together.
Let's talk about that brother of yours. I read about him. Mr. Entrepreneur, the blue-collar American dream, I make money, I build jobs in my community, blah, blah, blah. How's he doing?
He's good.
How come you guys aren't still close?
I mean, we're close with brothers.
Yeah, well, that's funny because you're practically like a father to that kid. He hasn't ever done for you. Well, it doesn't look like he's done for you. Which brings me to my point. Mikey, I think I know of a way where we can both earn what we deserve. I'm talking 6 figures each.
6 figures?
I think if you speed that up, you'll get some fine film criticism.
Maybe so. I mean, I think maybe this is, even through speeding up, this is beyond redemption. I mean, the thing is, there is a fine line between a great Nicolas Cage performance and a terrible one. And this is just nowhere even near that line. It's just wandering off kind of in the crazy bushes of insanity over in the corner. It's a very hair and nose-based performance, I think you would say. He's wearing this kind of weird prosthetic schnoz, and he looks like Anna Wintour crossed with a meth kook. The hair is just, it's this kind of, anyway, you kind of, it almost defies description. You have to kind of see it in action, and he's just basically going nuts. The performance feels chronically under-directed. It rambles and strays all over the place. Weirdly, the character that he's playing, and I wonder if this was a kind of a Cage stipulation in order to stop himself falling asleep while making this, is a revival of a character he played in a 1993 film called Deadfall, which was completely terrible, directed by his brother. His brother actually shows up and makes a cameo in this as his character's brother. So it's all very kind of meta for people who are dedicated followers of the Cage career. But, it brings to mind, in a very, very bad way, something like Werner Herzog's Bad Lieutenant, where you have that shambling, drug-drenched, malarial screen persona that just works so well. And you just look at it and thinking, okay, so this is how that can go very, very badly. The whole thing, I mean, it's shot in this kind of toxic pucal vision with the colours all cranked up to 500 in order to try and capture some of that madness that it just can't do through craft. We talked a little bit about the action staging in John Wick Chapter 2 earlier. And, one of these classic Hong Kong movie techniques is where you have a pursuit through people's houses. You have the shot of the old guy watching TV, and then the camera does this whip pan across from the door. One person runs through, he goes out the window, and then you have the old guy on the sofa kind of looking confused, and haha, it's a funny bit because the action movie has somehow suddenly invaded the real world. Now, this film tries to stage that kind of action sequence, but the camera is just pelting through after Adrian Grenier as he runs through the house, and so the whole thing is just totally confusing. What is on screen bears no resemblance, I think, to the film that they thought they were making. It's also, I should say, it's 18 certificate, and in terms of the gore here, I mean, it's just people, anyone gets shot, it's just like kind of mince and glue being thrown around all over the place, and it's just really revolting in an awkward way.
Being thrown out?
Mince and glue, like
mince and glue?
Minced beef. and glue as in like PV, like all kind of sticky kind of brainy matter and bleh, dripping down the walls.
What if you're a vegetarian? What do they use then? You can't use ground beef and glue.
Do you know, it's funny you mentioned vegetarianism because this film is weirdly anti-vegetarian. It has a really strange politic, and it's almost like it's been written by someone living in a corrugated iron shed with a sheep's skull hanging on the door. You know, it's obviously very pro-guns, very pro-Christian. JP's wife is a sexy Christian. He comes home and, you know, she's like, hi, honey, how was, you know, let's pray about what happened today. Husband's been out kind of gunning people down indiscriminately in the street. You know, so there's all that weirdness. Also, John Cusack shows up. Maybe he had a free weekend, but it's not, I mean, this is like not like a Naomi Harris in Moonlight style, you know, sweep in and give the performance of your life. He's normally sitting down when he's there for a start. You know, he's like in a rocking chair, he's got a coffee or something, or he's wandering around offering observations. He's an old friend of JP's who sometimes tags along for the rescue operation and sometimes doesn't. I mean, it's just almost unwatchable.
Maybe John Cusack brought the ground beef. Maybe they kind of said, John, how you doing? And he said, look, I can't talk now, I'm in a supermarket. And they said, you couldn't pick us up a couple of things, could you? And he turned up and they said, listen, since you're here, hand over the...
In his first scene, he actually pulls up in the car.
There you go.
So maybe that's it.
That's it. That was him just arriving from, you know, whatever the American version of kind of, you know, stock supermarket is.